So we are a revolutionary organization. We believe that if one wants to know what it will take for us to become free, all we have to do is look at history and see what it took for us to become enslaved. And if we find any place in our history that we voted ourselves into slavery, then I say let's go and get together and vote ourselves the hell out of slavery. And if we can find any place in history where we sang our way into it, then let's sing our way out of it. But the reality, that is not the case, sisters and brothers. The reality is that we are going to have to cut, shoot, and bomb our way out of the circumstances that we find ourselves confronted with. And I know that's not something that everybody wants to hear, and it's not something that a lot of folk want to hear. But it's the truth nevertheless. This is not a suggestion at this meeting that once you're on your way out, we're going to be handing out AK-47s for people to go out and do your thing. The reality is I'd be extremely afraid to pass out AK-47s in the community because I'd be afraid that I'd probably become one of the first victims of the AK-47. In other words, there's a lot of work that we have to do in the interim. But having said that there's a lot of work we have to do, we have to also remember that our objective is total, absolute liberation for our people. And you can't have it any other way. There's no way that you can talk about sharing the power over your lives with somebody else and then feeling like you got a right to complain about what somebody does to you. Either you want the power or you don't.
25 years ago, in April of 1991, the African People's Socialist Party initiated the founding convention of the National People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, later to become the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, or InPDUM. That historic convention opened in Chicago on April 6, 1991, the 23rd anniversary of the U.S. police murder of 17-year-old Black Panther Party member Bobby Hutton. APSP motivation for founding InPDUM was clear. The struggle for the liberation of our people had to be resuscitated after its crushing military defeat of the 1960s. The masses of the colonized African population of the U.S. had to be brought back into active, conscious, independent political life. The counterinsurgency that had come with our defeat, ushering in a period of mass demoralization, disorganization, dispersal, and chemical warfare in the form of the imposition of a drug economy, had to be exposed and defeated. Since then, InPDUM has been fighting for the democratic rights of the oppressed and exploited African community all over the world. In 1966, Chairman Omali Eshitela, then known as Joe Waller, was jailed for ripping a mural down that hung in St. Petersburg City Hall that negatively depicted African people entertaining white people with enlarged facial features. At the same time, we have struggled tooth and nail to rebuild revolutionary organizational capacity capable of representing the genuine interests of our oppressed people. It has been a road of struggle that has taken us into every imaginable venue, from the chambers of the city halls of various major cities, where we challenge neo-colonial politicians who sell out the black community for crumbs, to the courtrooms in which our people are railroaded by the U.S. injustice system, to the sidewalks in the freezing cold and unbearable heat conditions. InPDUM has been there, fighting every step of the way. We have made it impossible for imperialism to know peace within its own system. We have not struggled simply for justice for one person, but to win reparations, economic and political power for the entire African nation. Not until every African man, woman, and child is free to be themselves in a world where black power has risen will InPDUM stop the resistance. InPDUM has years of resistance and a history of fighting back for the African working class. We supported the movement to free Fred Hampton Jr., framed up in Chicago in the 1990s. In 1996, InPDUM represented organizational leadership for the African working class when young Africans from the south side of St. Petersburg rose up in resistance against the point-blank police murder of 18-year-old Tyrone Lewis during a traffic stop. 3 weeks later, following the grand jury's exoneration of the police, the community again rose up to defend the Uhuru house from a military attack.
The response was to slander that brother, to isolate and criminalize our movement, and then to indict us, to send us to prison.
Because of our stance of defending our people, the cops attacked our headquarters in an attempt to crush our movement. They failed. And we prevailed. The community rose up to defeat the police in what has come to be known as the Battle of St. Petersburg. InPDUM is internationally known for leading the African resistance. We are in Africa, Sierra Leone, Bahamas, Germany, and London. In 2005, we supported the struggle for justice for Ori Jalloh, a young African man who was burned to death while in police custody in Germany. In Miami in 2006, 7 young African men were captured by the FBI after being framed by provocateurs who were recruited to brand them as terrorists in a U.S. Justice Department campaign. InPDUM was the first to organize in their defense. From 2007 to 2009, in Oakland, we stood courageously in defense of Oscar Grant, Andrew Maupin, Leslie Xavier Allen, Casper Banjo, Jose Luis Buenrostro Gonzalez, Mac Jody Woodfox, and Anita Gay, all murdered by police violence. In 2008, it was InPDUM who led a protest against the U.S. presidential candidate Barack Obama during a town hall meeting he held at Gibbs High School in St. Petersburg. In that action, InPDUM raised up the question heard around the world: what about the black community, Obama? In Bronson, Florida in 2012, InPDUM led a powerful struggle to free Eric Oliver, an 18-year-old African who was arrested and charged with assault for defending himself and his family by beating down a white lynch mob who came to lynch his younger brother. InPDUM has fought for black community control of schools. In 2013, we waged a successful campaign to free baby Dylan from the clutches of Pennsylvania Hospital, where the doctors forced the baby to take morphine against the wishes of his mother. In August of 2014, InPDUM rose from the ashes of the Ferguson Rebellion, where the African working class took to the streets and fought back. After the acquittal of Darren Wilson, black people of Ferguson, led by the African People's Socialist Party and InPDUM, led the Black People's Grand Jury and put him back on trial and found him guilty of the murder of Michael Brown. The launch of Africans Charged Genocide campaign came shortly after the assassination of Mike Brown. In 2015, InPDUM braved the frigid temperatures of the Northeast region, sleeping in tents on the Africans Charged Genocide Winter Encampment Tour to follow the United Nations. The president of InPDUM spoke to the United Nations panel of experts on behalf of the African working class on the conditions we face in the United States. The war being waged on the Flint, Michigan residents once again sent InPDUM to the front line with the message of Africans Charged Genocide campaign to let our people know that this was genocide. On March 31st, 2016, in St. Petersburg, Florida, the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department drowned 3 teenaged African girls, Dominique Battle, Lanaya Miller, and Deshanti Butler, by chasing them and ramming the back of their car into a pond. We have fought fiercely to get justice in the form of black community control of the police, reparations to the families, and the immediate resignation of Sheriff Killer Bob Gaultieri and the other guilty sheriff's deputies with the 3 Drowned Black Girls campaign. The 60s was a dress rehearsal. Now the curtains are rising on the African Revolution and the people are ready to sing victory. Whether it comes from revolutionaries fighting against U.S. imperialism or the colonization of African and oppressed people around the world and within the U.S., InPDUM must continue to bring the people into mass organized resistance. This is an incredibly significant historical moment that we must move to capture and define. The future of our people requires it.
When do you want your freedom, young man?
I want freedom now.
You can wait till next week, though, can you?
No.
What is freedom?
Freedom is black power.
The future of the world depends on it. Forward to the revolutionary national democratic victory. Build the international people's democratic Uhuru movement. Uhuru!
Uhuru, my name is Columbai, and I am the president of the International People Democratic Uhuru movement, and I need you to join.
We say all power to the people. We say ease where leg to. Africa. No compromise. No surrender. Uhuru.